We're talking now with Mr. Dudley Connell. He is a member of the legendary bluegrass band, the Seldom Scene. They'll be at the Harvester Performance Center in Rocky Mount on December the 8th. Dudley, before we talk about the show at the Harvester, gosh, it's really come full circle for you, hasn't it? At one point there in the mid-'90s, you were kind of the new guy on the block in the group, and now you've been hanging around for a long time, and I guess you're sort of the old man of the group, right?
I am the old man of the group. Well, me, Fred, and Ronnie all joined on the same day, and we ended up just sticking around. We enjoy each other's company. We enjoy the music, and it's been a beautiful 21-year ride. I don't think I've ever done anything else for 21 years, so it's a really positive thing, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, to do it for that long, and it's not like you were just sitting in your basement before that. You were playing in bluegrass bands before that as well. To do something for that long, you must really love it. I mean, still playing these shows every night, not every night, but a couple times a week or so. You got to be still having fun out there, right?
You know, we are, and people have asked me over the years, well, how do you do it? You know, because bluegrass bands typically don't stay together that long. 10 years is a long haul for a bluegrass band with no personnel changes. And you know, I think part of it is we don't travel on a bus. We don't all sleep in the same hotel room. We all don't go to the same restaurants. We give each other space, and when we get together to play a show, we're really glad to see each other. I mean, we're not all in each other's face, you know, every day of the week. I've done that, and at the time that I did do that, when I was, you know, traveling all the time, you know, you do have to do that at some point in your career. But I think the fact that we have given each other space over the years has contributed to the longevity of the group and the low personnel turnover. And it is fun. It's still fun, and I love the sort of nonchalant. Now, when I say nonchalant, I should straighten myself out there. Is that we take our music very seriously and we work really hard at it, but the presentation is kind of anything goes. And it's one of the things that's really fun about the Harvester is that the audience is right there, and it's not like a performance. It's like we're all in this together. It's like sitting in a living room or something.
Yeah,
Love that place.
I was going to say living room, back porch, kind of a vibe, that sort of thing. Talk about the Harvester a little bit. I mean, obviously in your travels, you've played all the great venues. You know, from talking to other artists, and I'm sure you're going to agree with this, the Harvester stands right up there with any venue around, correct?
I could not agree with you more. There's just, well, first of all, the town itself is just this great little small town, you know, small town America, and the theater books all these great acts, and I guess if I want to speak specifically about the venue, is that the audience is up close and personal. You can see all the way to the back row, and you can have eye contact with people. Now, I don't mind. I was saying that I don't mind playing big theaters, and we do a lot of that where you can see the first or second row, and everybody disappears into the darkness. But I find that less. It's not as personal as a place like the Harvester, where you can see people, you can talk to people, they can shout out requests, we can do them if we. Well, I was going to say if we know them, but we have a tendency to even play songs we don't know sometimes just for the heck of it. But, you know, it's just, there's something real personal about that, and it's not us and them, it's all of us together, and, you know, that's the best. That's the very best that you can ever ask for. And there's only a handful of places that we play in America that I can think of that are like that. It's a real special place. And when we get to play there, it's a real special event for us, too.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the songs there, because that was going to be something I was going to ask you about later on, but I'll throw it at you right now. You guys have been together so long. You've got the songs from before you joined the band, the Seldom Scene kind of favorites. You've got bluegrass standards. You've got multiple guys in the group that are writing songs. How do you balance that out? You just play different stuff every night? Is it sort of like a Grateful Dead vibe up there where you just kind of decide when you get on stage, or how does that work?
Well, you know what? We have a rough guide. The way that we didn't used to play with a set list at all, but as Ben aged, it got a little tougher for him to just for us to just throw songs at him one boom 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 like that. But we we have a rough guide that we start with. So we got two or three songs that we do to open the set, and then we kind of try to feel the audience out and see what works for them and also what works for us. But you know, the bigger question that you raise is how does a band that's been around for 21 years balance the material between old and new, and that's truly the challenge. And you know, we try to. I'm stumbling over myself a little bit here, but let me tell you. I'll tell you just a really quick story.
Absolutely.
There was a back. This has been a decade ago, but it always stuck in my mind. There were two concerts that came to Washington D.C. on the backs of each other, and it was Van Morrison and Paul McCartney. And Van Morrison played his show and kind of badmouthed the sound company, turned his back on the audience, and refused to play any of the songs that people probably came to hear him sing. You know, the Tupelo Honey and all that kind of stuff. And the review was atrocious. It was a terrible review. Nope, you know, people went away unhappy. And within a week, Paul McCartney played one of these big stadiums here in town. I think it was like FedEx Field or something like that. And he played stuff from his new record initially, and then he just sort of opened up and played all these Beatles songs because, you know something, music really carries a heavy weight for a lot of people. And whether it's just the songs or where they were living and their experiences of when they heard these songs for the first time, it's really meaningful. It goes beyond the music. It's this emotional sort of gut level thing. And the scene being around as long as it has, it's really hard to turn your back on, like, Wait a Minute or Old Train or Muddy Waters. I don't care if the songs are 40 years old. If those songs are important to somebody and they come to see the band because those songs mean something to them, you know, even more than the music itself, well, I don't want to disappoint those people. But we also don't want to be a museum piece either. So we try to walk that sort of delicate balancing act of, you know, introducing new material gently, but also being open to playing the old stuff too. That's what we try to do, and it's not always easy, but that's the goal.
Interesting stuff there. We're talking with Dudley Connell. He is the singer, guitarist, and member of Seldom Scene, Bluegrass Legends Seldom Scene. They're going to be at the Harvester December the 8th. Dudley, before we let you run, a couple more questions. You've mentioned a few guys already, but tell us about the members of the band right now. I know you're pretty proud of these guys as musicians and also as friends, too.
Well, absolutely. Well, Ronnie Simpkins plays bass and sings bass, and I've known Ronnie for probably 30 years. I met him when he and his brother were in a band called the Virginia Squires, and they went on to play with you know, Tony Rice, and he did, and all kinds of great acts, Claire Lynch, and he joined the same day that I did, as well as Fred Travers, who hadn't traveled quite as extensively as the rest of us, but he was a real disciple, and in fact, an honest-to-God student of Mike Aldridge. And he tells us, Fred tells the story of going to see Doc Watson at Constitution Hall, and the opening act was the Seldom Scene, and he'd never seen a dobro before. But as soon as he heard Mike play, he said, "That's it. That's what I've been," you know, because he likes slide guitar like, you know, Dwayne Allman and some of the other players that were around at the time. But when he heard Mike play, you know, an acoustic slide guitar, a dobro, he said, "There it is." And his wife, Kyle, got, for Christmas, bought him a couple of lessons with Mike Aldridge. And when Mike left to join Chesapeake, Fred was the perfect choice And when I heard Fred play, I thought, wow, that's great. That just totally fits. What I didn't realize at the time, and is that Fred has this angelic, beautiful voice that sort of it's not a mimic of Duffy's. It's not a copy of John Duffy's voice, but he handles those quiet, cool ballads just beautifully. And it's like Duffy standing next to me, except it's not as loud. But it's a beautiful sound. And then Lou Reed was in the band in the mid '80s, doing my job, doing what I do now, playing guitar and singing lead. And he was right out of Ricky Skaggs's band during Ricky's country period in the '80s when he had all those hits, blues on all that stuff, and playing banjo, guitar, whatever needed to be done. Lou's a multi-talented guy, and he could do it all. And he does, and he does it with us too. And the last guy that I'm going to mention to you and is the newest member who actually played his debut show with us just last weekend is Ron Stewart, who's playing fiddle and banjo and has a long history in bluegrass with the Lynn Morris band. And I think before that he was in a band with his family. But he's just a monstrous player and a guy that's heavily in demand for session work and things like that. And, he was in a group called the Boxcars that just recently folded. And we were just really lucky to snag him up before he went somewhere else. I'm proud of all these guys, and we just enjoy each other's company and making music together. I'm looking forward to a long future with no personnel changes for a long, long time.
Well, great stuff. I know you had a couple albums out recently. Synchronized was one of them. That's hard to say, but a great concept where you got some other people in on the record. Talk about that, and then maybe since you do have a stable lineup, can we expect an album again in the future?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. We're just about, well, I can't tell you quite yet.
I love it when people say that. I can't tell you that the album's coming out in January.
I can't tell you, but we just signed a contract with a well-known record company.
Okay.
And we've got a concept record coming out in 2018. They'll probably actually start recording in January of this year. That's the goal, anyway.
Sure.
And it's going to be a very interesting project, and it's going to be different from anything the band has done in the past. But that's a good thing, because the scene has always sort of pushed the boundaries. I mean, like way before I was there, the band was recording Bob Dylan songs and Eric Clapton songs, and just the music really had no boundaries. And I think that's one of my favorite things about the group. Is a good song despite where it comes from. And I think that John Starling and Mike Aldridge and all those guys, John Duffy, they were all open to new ideas, and so are we. And so I think that we're kind of carrying that little piece of the tradition along with us.
Great stuff, Dudley. We'll let you run. It's really been wonderful chatting with you. The Seldom Scene is going to be in Rocky Mount December the 8th at the Harvester Performance Center. Gosh, we need to plan on doing this again sometime, Dudley.
You know what? You call me anytime, Kyle. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, man, famous last words. You're going to get a call at like 1 in the morning.
Well, go ahead, damn it. I'm probably up.
Awesome.